Okay, we're recording. It's the Manx Labour Party newspaper review for March the 8th, 2018, and it's just some time to kill really before our meeting, which starts at 7 p.m. So we'll have a talk about what's been in the papers recently, and seeing it's Women's Day, we'll start with the women in our team. Carol, do you want to chip in first, see what's caught your eye this week?
What caught my eye and was very interesting was the meeting at the Commissioners on Monday evening in the public. And it's in the press now, and it was Mr Cubbin and his attitude towards pensioners and the elderly.
So this is in Castletown, isn't it? And you're on the board, of course, Carol, so you know what the makeup is in Castletown, and perhaps
so what's
there's
the
been...
story? What happened? What happened is Mr Cubbin is very frustrated. He's trying to get this skate park off the ground. He's also trying to get Castletown Commissioners to hand over Pulson Park to him and a couple of other people on his committee when Pulson Park belongs to the people of Castletown, so we can't hand it over, but that's another story. But Mr Cubbin is extremely frustrated that there's not a lot happening for children. He wants more happening for children. And he's just sick and tired of Castletown being full of old people. Wants to build more houses, but of course Castletown's hemmed in by Maloo, so we've got nowhere to build. And then he's extremely cross that Maloo are going to get an extra 300 houses and a bypass. So he's really frustrated at the moment, is Mr Cubbin.
Castletown's got quite a reputation, hasn't it, really, for perhaps things not moving forward as quick as what they should, and we had the traders' uprising last year, but I thought, with new people coming into the board, I thought we'd have a bit more energy, a bit more activity, really.
Well, we do. We have a lot of positivity, but it seems to be, if this is not going out, the thing.
Well, it's been recorded.
Yeah. It's the Jim Cubbin Club. And instead of Jimmy working with everybody, he's getting everybody's backs up. So it's sort of, everything's clashing. Instead of working as a team and progressing stuff. Because we are progressing on Castletown, it's coming back to life, because the regeneration did hit us quite a bit. Mr Tilliard shut his shops, they're now turning into houses.
That's what it was going to do.
But it was always going to do that. But then again, the high street shopping, it's not like it used to be. Because the internet.
It's the same everywhere, isn't it?
It is. It's all over the world. It's not just in Castletown.
And of course, what happens in Castletown is similar to what's happening all around the Isle of Man in many different ways.
Yeah.
So, it's another story, but really it could be in any
I'd like to
any
tap
town.
into Ramsey. Ramsey seems to be thriving.
Not when I go there.
Is it not? No,
No.
the shop's opened up and it's...
People do like it. It does seem to have something that makes it...
Yeah, so I don't know what's making Ramsey work.
Well,
not anywhere else.
I mean, Leo, you're a shop owner, a business owner. You must have some view about this, what the success is.
I mean, the internet, obviously people have the choice. I mean, I don't know if it's wholly that, in that, a lot of things people need to buy, the sort of basic things, and the price isn't that different. I mean, we talk about a halogen heater. If you buy it on the internet, it's not going to. I don't think it's going to be cheaper than if you buy it in a local shop. Yeah. There are some specific things which you can't get on the island, which of course you would go down and look further afield, some more sort of interest shops, because we don't have the population to support it. But you've always, got the thing with shipping coming over here. But yeah, you need a good selection, but you also need, communities in town centres. And it's very easy, someone to we have an unwritten rule in Port Ellen where I wouldn't sell pet things because there's a shop down the road, two stores down the road sells that. And if you want to create these things, then you have to encourage that sort of thinking, sort of diversity. There's no point someone coming in, people say, well, it's not all against market competition, but on an island, if you want to have diversity and things like that, you can't let those sort of rules, operate freely, or you have to sort of think in a broader circumstance. Because Port Ellen seems to be doing okay at the moment, but some people say, well, it's under-resourced or not enough. But Castletown is, certainly felt the brunt of it, isn't?
Yeah.
That's great. And that is due really to in my opinion, to Hilliard. I mean, he came in and broke it in the sense of making some sort of, or making money from it, and I don't know, that hasn't really been very beneficial.
Yeah, his original plan was to have it all residential, and he's getting his way. Because he could sell it on better then.
Yeah.
He couldn't sell it on with a load of empty shops.
It's another example where on the Isle of Man, a very wealthy
With the
individual,
checkbook.
the influence of what they've done has had a knock-on effect, and it's been to the detriment of others. And we can cite that right around, the island in the history in the last 20 years, and it's unfortunate that it happened to Castletown.
The thing is, when he first reared his head, everyone said that this is what his goal was.
Yeah.
Everybody knew it, and yet it still
He's
was
still
allowed
got
to
the
happen.
planning, he's still got the backing.
We had a
he's still
similar
got-
case of, I think, Kirby Whittaker, who's behind Peel Holdings, and he wants to make changes, but we've had a very active campaign to stop that. I mean, it's got to be fair. You've got to have a relative level playing field, and these people, and he has an unlimited amount of funds to pursue these things, but he's now been turned down twice, but every time there's been such a strong response. But unless it's very easy when people get sort of sidetracked by someone's amount of influence and power and think, well, we wouldn't want to annoy him and he might go. I think it's the wrong sort of attitude. If you want to be here because it's nice and because you want to be a part of things, then great, be here. But if you don't, then we're not going to change, or we shouldn't take the attitude that we're going to change.
Does it go back to accountability, though? That, certainly in the last 20 years, these cases where planning, there's been issues regarding, say, Mount Murray,
I was going to say
the
that.
inquiry and what have you, and it goes back to accountability, where there was no accountability, and things are happening behind the scenes, and there's been a perception from the public that, oh gosh, it's all being done by secret organisations and what have you, and in fact, there was that activity taking place.
Yeah, I think.
In that last election, when Phil Gorn stood and Graham Jean, and they were saying that they were against putting up the taxes and things, for the big companies, the likes of Tesco and Boots and all that, because they would leave. We can't do that because they would leave.
Yeah, I mean, I'm philosophically opposed to 0-10, but it's philosophical. I don't know enough about how likely companies are to react to it. But I think that companies are coming and going, and then take advantage of the tax once they come. I don't think they're coming for it. I've never thought they'd come for it. Not those sort of retail companies. I'm sure that other various things do.
Evening.
Evening.
Do you want to come and join in our discussion?
Yes, seems I'm a bit early.
We're just doing a sample, it's a recording, so it's not going to be going out for public
just
broadcast.
practicing.
We're just having a chat, getting used to
super, thanks.
talking.
Don't mind if I get a beer first.
Beer? Okay. Crack on.
Mine's a double.
No, that's what I would do.
You've got the keys to the bar.
I don't know if the bar's open.
That might not be open for them.
I'm not in yet.
Don't think it'll be open today.
You'll have to go to the Prospect, I think.
What? Boo.
There are people in there.
Having a meeting?
You're not allowed any drinks on the dance floor, though, I'm afraid.
As if I was going to put
So bear that in mind.
As if I was going to put them on the dance floor.
They get kicked over.
Yes, quite.
Okay. We'll continue.
Well, yes, just continue whilst I reconnoitre.
Should we move on to another item from either Sarah or Lynn? Anything that's caught your eye?
Sorry, my head's not in this.
What about the big debate this week?
The abortion.
Fascinating, wasn't it?
It was.
Absolutely
I
fascinating.
didn't hear
It was
any of
like when gay was taboo subject over here for a long time. Being gay
Well,
was
illegal.
naughty, very naughty. And I remember when they made it legal, parts of the old debates, reading them and listening to the abortion debate the other day, it was like
You would go
we
back
were
in time.
in them days, you know, things that they were saying, like what one of the guys said about the social element of it. You know, they want it to be medical, and they're very iffy about the social elements, and couldn't quite get their heads around the social elements. And one of them said, you know, they could use it as, if they can't get a babysitter on a Friday night, you know, that they could use that as their social reason for having an abortion. It staggered me.
I don't think it was as vitriolic as the legalisation of homosexual debate or anything.
No, because they now have to be a little bit more careful how they say things.
Absolutely.
But you can read behind what they're saying. You can tell exactly how they're thinking by the way that they're saying things, you know, and they don't even realise how backward they're being. It's shocking.
Do you think, I mean, I don't know what the religious stance is of these, you know, the ones that were against it, but it was almost like a team effort to derail it at every point. Yeah. And yet, you know, for the rest of the time during the year, these individuals, they're not in the pulpit preaching, are they?
No.
There's never been any, you know, sign of this way of thinking, you know, in the manifestos or any of this.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I think Anne Robert Shaw was quite open
and Robert
in his...
Shaw,
yeah.
when they had... they wanted to go to debate, and it was stopped for youth, what do they call it? Euthanasia, but it's not called that.
Right to die.
Yeah, it wasn't even called that, but you know, and Kate put this big thing in about why it shouldn't even go for debate, and it was stopped. And I said to Kate at the time, I was one of her constituents, I said, you didn't ask my opinion, and many of the people that are in our constituency I know are for it, you know, and she said, no, but I went with my...
Yeah.
And I think that's fair in terms of democracy.
No, I don't think it's fair at all. I think it's dreadful. She's voted in to represent us. Therefore, she can put her side and say, I'm against it personally, but my constituents...
Some constituents.
But she didn't even ask her constituents, you know, and that's what I find. I think if they have a social conscience, then they should put that forward and say, personally, I'm not for this. But then they should actually actively ask their constituents, how would you like me to vote on this?
I also think constituents should actively ask their candidates and get a feel for them as well. It's a two-way street. It's not all about the candidate.
But they don't know what's going to come up in the 5 years.
You don't, but it doesn't have to be on every single issue. You have to get a feeling of what your candidate believes in, what your candidate stands for, what sort of person they are, and take a measure of them. Because they are your representative. They're not representing all your views. They don't have to think the same as you do, but they have to represent the constituency.
Yeah,
so
but
they are entitled to their own
think
views.
the way you do either.
I absolutely
Richard,
agree.
And then when people come to their doors, they're meeting these people. Oh yeah, they're nice, and they're saying things that I like, and they don't go deeper than that. It's only when an issue comes up they think, well, I don't think that, and I didn't vote you in to vote that way for me.
But then there could be 50% of the population, their constituency
But how did
wouldn't
you know?
vote. But I understand what you're saying, but I 100% get what you're saying, but when it comes to social conscience items like this, you're always going to have that
Of
problem.
course you are,
Yeah.
which is why you should go
And
back to your constituents and
how,
find out what they want. They voted you
so
in.
what process would you do? Like, you'd expect her to go around everybody's door or to
No.
email or phone everybody? How
She's
would you
got a
expect to get
Facebook
that
page.
information?
Lynn
Not
Van
everyone's
have got a
on
Facebook page.
but-
She could have asked what
Yeah.
are your... Not everybody is, but
No.
she could have got a feel for what the constituents want. She never even... She wasn't even interested. Even if 99% of them had gone to her and said, we want this to go to debate, she would have still voted against it. She would have still spoke against it.
You're absolutely right
Yeah.
in that. The thing is, this is the system we have. I mean, it's more an argument for changing the
Correct.
system,
Yeah.
which is, if you want to have social issues, it should be done the way the Irish are doing it, I think, was through a combination of referendum and informed debate.
Yeah.
Combine those two things together and you're more likely to get it. I think
But to stop something even going to debate because of your personal thing, I think that is so wrong.
yeah, I mean, yeah, that is wrong.
It often gets put by the side, isn't it? And I remember at the hustings in Russian, June Watterson was asked this question. He said, I'm declining to comment on it. And I thought, you know, if you've been voted in twice, how can you decline to comment on it? I mean, how can you not comment on it? It was, but he did, and I mean, clearly he is, you know, so people voted for lots of things that think, oh, you might be quite good at this, and then that just gets put by the side because I mean there was also a lot of movement for change, and I don't think he's with that movement. But
listening to the debate, the debate, as much as there were people who were, I won't say disappointing because they lived up to their expectations, but there's a couple that stood out in certain aspects who were very, very good and more than the measure for everybody else. I mean, when they were talking about, for at one point, which one it was, I was very impressed by Chris Thomas. It's when they're talking about what medical reasons for a late-term abortion for disabilities, or and that you could hear the passion in his voice. Then he was very good, and I was really impressed with Claire Betterson as well. They were very, very good.
Yeah.
But when I
They
heard,
knew what they were talking about.
yeah,
Yeah.
when I heard Graham Cudgene talk about his amendments, as I was listening to it, I thought,
Yeah.
you're going to get slapped here. And it's sure enough. I mean, Alonso was very good in the way he dealt with that,
Yeah.
and the way he was on Manx Radio the following day, very conciliatory and
Oh, very
MLP
impressed
together.
with him. Very
But
impressed.
I
With
thought
Alex.
that's getting nowhere. Yeah. So it was it went as well as I thought it would do. You could pick up who was going to be for
For and
it. Yeah.
against.
Although I haven't said Bill Malarkey quite surprised me being so. Oh, he wasn't speaking well, but what he was saying was he was on the right side.
Yeah.
He was on the right side of the debate all the way through it, and I was
Yeah.
quite surprised by that. I don't know why.
No, I knew he was one.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
Your topic?
That was mine.
So
I thought that
I've
was
not
yours.
got a topic, to be honest.
I've got one. Well, they've got the BCOF questions. Chief Minister on changes, which
Oh,
sort
yes.
of interlinks into obviously the changes in the programme of government. And of course, now that we have elections for the MLCs, we have a Chief Minister who's obviously voted in by a number of people who are now no longer in the same positions that they were before. So it brings the whole sort of question and actually the making of changes. And this sort of goes back to Chris Thomas. They're now doing the consultation hub to get people involved. They're now going down to Peel and other places to teach people how to use this consultation hub. And I've used it, and I sort of can't see how. I mean, I've struggled, and I'm well educated. So I mean, I don't know how other people are going to use it. And I'm not quite sure what the point of going out there is. And it's something I wanted to ask Chris Thomas at some point. You know, if he'd actually used it. And if you actually
What
thought
is it? What are you talking about?
the consultation hub, which
What?
is a sort of limiting, you know, it's just this role of, you know, change of programme of government, which, well, I've sort of interlinked it because Kate Beecroft started saying, well, change of government should happen, or not change of programme of government
Yeah.
should happen, or how would that happen if you
No, I
wanted
know what
to?
you're talking about there. I'm talking the hub. What is it?
It's a digital way for, they basically consult on everything at the moment.
Consultants are all just one place. That's what it is.
And it's, the questions are
So
simply...
you go to this place and they've got computers and you
No,
answer questions.
it's
No,
online.
you can do it online, you can do it anywhere, but it's not,
So what are you
particularly
talking about? They're
complex.
going out to Peel? I don't understand.
Well,
They're
they're going out to
around
Peel to
speaking about it.
because
Yeah.
presumably it's so easy that they still need to show people how to do it. But I think it's more complex than that. I mean,
Right. The meetings, the public meetings, are to show people how to use the hub.
yeah, it's simply a
Just
sort of
ask
almost
there,
computer
really.
exercise.
Okay.
But I mean, if anyone, I mean, I recommend just try half an hour on filling it. You can pick anyone. There's literally like, almost like hundreds. Well,
Yeah.
hundreds there. But there's quite a
I've
lot
tried
there.
and I give up.
And the close and the thing, and the questions seem to say a lot more about the people who've written them.
They're
than the
loaded.
questions.
Yeah.
The questions
they
are
are.
loaded anyway.
So I mean, there's you know a whole sort of, but I kind of wonder why they're pursuing this. Is this then for a greater way? Is there some sort of halfway house between getting people involved in government, but then you're getting them involved in government under your terms,
That's
which
exactly what it is.
yeah,
Which is
rather
precisely
problematic.
the object of consultation, having been in Whitehall in the previous day, the object of consultation is to actually ensure that you get the response you want.
And that's
Yeah.
exactly what
Exactly.
they've done.
You know,
That's why you put questions, or you make time frame
Yeah.
short, or you do publicly, and you announce it in the appropriate places, but not broadly, so that you can.
Well, that's why they
get
have
the
the
ki- get
invite
kind of-
only,
the kind
isn't
of
it?
consultation that you want.
Yeah.
No, nobody wants consultation, and when consultations come back that oppose the line, then obviously, right, fine, we have to go away and think about this.
Yeah.
And
And
then
ignore
it
it.
sort of percolates down into the
Yeah.
into the long grass because it then won't fit into the legislative timetable. So
It is actually how you frame the question as well.
Absolutely, yes. You know, how you frame a consultation document, how you frame.
Did you go to the one at the Manx Museum?
No.
Oh,
The big debate.
they had
No,
all the
no.
ones.
I heard some of the big debate, and it was exactly what I thought.
Yeah, and then they opened it up.
You know,
They were only
it was
invite
you know,
only.
it was North Korean clapping of,
Yeah.
came in. It was just
Yeah.
ridiculous.
I think the challenge will, the test will be when they say, well, we're only taking information through the consultation hub, we're no longer taking written submissions in.
Mm.
That's when I would become very, very worried.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're going to do it, but I can see them heading towards that, where, you know, rather than you
Yeah, if
writing
you want
in,
to engage, then do it via
yeah,
the hub.
rather than writing this is the belief, what we believe.
Yeah.
No, we only want to know what you think of these, not what you think of the whole subject.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know if they're going to go down that way, but I can see it, because when they get written submissions, it does throw up questions they don't want to, and they have to be published. You know.
Surely there could be scope, say, if we did develop our own media, for instance, that these consultations could be picked out, and these crazy questions that you're really scratching your head, aren't you? You know, as what is this
Yeah.
about? You know, you think I've got a few brain cells, but I can't work this out, and they're expecting. Well, the invitation is for the whole of the Isle of Man to engage, but maybe these like freedom of what would the freedom of information reveal? How many? You know, what's the percentage on the uptake for these questions, and then how are they dealt with? How many people start and actually finish? Because I know when there's like 50 questions, I'm kind of going.
That's you want
Yeah,
to express your
give
point
up.
of view about a particular issue you feel very passionate about, and then but the whole process, I think the majority of people will become stuck. You just can't
But there's no one around to criticise this, is there? It just skates through, you know, and it's right, we've done that, we've consulted with the public, but
Yeah.
unless
Well,
we have a
exactly.
body that
Yeah.
can say,
Yeah.
look folks, have you seen question 14?
Yeah.
What does this actually tell you? You know, and if we could,
And we could do
Get
that
into
in our
that.
media.
yeah,
pick
It
them up and
reminds me-
discuss it on our media.
There was quite a few people on the island got rung up by the anti-abortion
Yeah.
people. Well, they hired a firm, didn't
Yeah,
they, to ring
to do
people
it,
to
yeah.
ask what their
Cold
opinions
call.
were, and they were all loaded questions. And at the beginning, well, I know my niece, she and when they first launched, in the end, well, after 2 questions, I think it was, she said, I'm not answering these, and put the phone down. I deliberately went through the whole thing because I thought it's only the people that agree with it will answer these questions, because they were so loaded that way that it would keep them engaged and they would stay on and answer them. Whereas lots of people, and they were even putting it on Facebook, I put the phone down, I told them where to go, I told them to F off. All, you know, hundreds of these I read. And
So they based their opinions on the
On the
ones
ones
that
that
stayed on
did
the
answer,
line
yeah,
and asked the
and-
questions.
Did the Chief Minister refer to
Oh, of course he
a
did.
survey?
Of course he did.
I recall it, but which one was it? Was it one of these?
No, he did refer to the Commonwealth Survey, as I recall. Yeah.
well, the police said it was illegal at first, didn't they? And then they had to.
So he was using that in his art. That was the survey.
Yeah.
I just caught, you know, the middle bit of that one. So he was using that in his argument,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then because then there was talk about was it Laurie Hooper? Then started questioning the survey and the, you know,
The validity
the
of
solidity
it,
of it and all that. So,
yeah.
oh, right, okay.
But it was
That's
shocking.
interesting.
But that reminds me, that was when they started the big debate one that I went to, the one that was open to public, I was just shocked when they asking questions and press these buttons, and I was, well, what about this? What if you didn't agree with it?
There was no
There was
option,
no-
was
I
there?
was at an
No.
invited
There
one.
was no other option. That's the same
No,
with
that
the
was public
consultations.
No,
I've
I was at
gone
an
on
invited
to-
one.
Oh, you were at the
So-
invited one. I wasn't invited.
Well,
On some of them consultations, you have to pick one of the answers that are there. You don't have an option to put in any text.
No.
Yeah,
No,
there
it's
should
just
have
a
been
bit-
an option.
just
to
a
put in
button.
bit of text.
And I said to
So
him,
you
I
have
said to Eddie Tia at the end when they were asking questions, do you think it's right that you have to pay for these people who don't want to work and are on benefits? Do you think it's right that your hard-earned money has to pay for these people to sit at home? You know, and that's how they were putting. Everyone was going, no, I don't think it's right. In the end, I said, look, and he knew me, Eddie Tia, yes, Lynn. I said, at the time, I said, I care. I'm a carer for 3 people. I was a carer for my terminally ill father, my special needs daughter, and my grandson, who has his own special needs, and I get disability allowance, carer's allowance. It's not a wage. You know, I said, but how much money does that save you as government? And you're begrudging me carer's allowance, which is not enough to live on. You know, I said, and all these people who are talking down here are begrudging me. And what about my pension? You know, what am I going to get when I've finished looking after everybody and then nobody's left for me to look after? And they say, well, there you go now, you're in your 50s, get a job. You know, get a job that's going to pay you enough to get a pension.
No chance.
You know, I said, so, you know, think about that before you're slagging everybody off on benefits and on sickness.
And it's like the lovely, of course, the lovely weasel way, we've lifted people out of tax.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, of course, because the majority of tax is paid indirectly. You know, the smallest child in the sweet shop pays tax.
Absolutely.
You know, the idea that we've lifted these people aren't paying tax, isn't it wonderful? Rubbish, because those people, of course, in the lowest quartile of earnings who are then lifted out of tax, increases in a variety of charges, increases in indirect taxation,
the rent, the gas,
well,
the
it's
electric.
VAT, isn't it?
Affect them in terms of disposable income, percentages of disposable income, if any, that they have, affect them far more greatly than those people in the top quartile of earnings. As I think I remember saying to somebody, yes, the Isle of Man is a special place to live and work if you earn 50 grand a year. The more 50 grand a year you earn, the more special it is.
Yes. Yeah. And the more special you are to the Isle of Man.
And the more special you are as far as the government is concerned. The less then...
But God help you if you're vulnerable.
Yeah, the lower you go down the pecking order. But the median earning is still only 29,000. And even that's still skewed because that takes into account non-manual earnings.
Yeah.
So go through the questions.
You look at the earnings survey. I mean, the earnings survey is quite damning because it actually used historical, for the first time, I think, used historical data and showed historical data from 2018, from 2008, I think, to 2017, and it showed that manual occupations earnings had dropped right off the cliff.
Really?
Overall earnings had stayed about static. Non-manual, of course, had increased a tad, but non-manual and for manual occupations, of course, those are categorised as much of retail, some manufacturing and stuff. The places where people will earn below median, and their earnings are.
Tell me, what did you make of the information that came out yesterday? You know, that we saw regarding the allowance.
Yeah, it's. I need to work on it hard to get my head fully around it, but there's a lot of people who are on peanuts, and when you combine that with some of the questions, some of the other answers, as you work through it and you look at, when I think it was to one of, I don't know whose question it was now, when they revealed for the first time I've seen in quite some time, the amount of occupations there are, about people in work and number of jobs. And I worked out there's 46.7% of people have at least 2 jobs at the working population, excluding self-employed. Yeah. And that's a horrendous number. You know, when you looked at the household incomes, when according to those figures, the only households that fall into the poverty level are those who are 75, 80 and over. And we all know that's absolute nonsense. Yeah. So the data is being skewed in some way, and it's digging down to find out why it's being skewed. You know, and I need to.
There's obviously a reason to do.
Yeah, why is fairly obvious. Because, because
there's some exceptionally high earners.
Anyone who talks down the Isle of Man is, it's nonsense. And this, that the Isle of Man is somehow a wonderful place where everyone skips around and there are unicorns and stuff. Well, it's okay for the kind of people who drink in the bath and bottle, but not for everybody else.
21,500 people outside earning under £12,500 a year. But I was at a PAG meeting a few years ago when Eddie Tier was minister, and he was gone on about it, and there was some guy there who was he just sold his tax accountancy company. I said he has clients, he says, and there's one in particular who pays no tax. He actually gets which when you can still get your tax back when because you were falling under the limit. And he says he knows damn fine that he's taken £2 million a year out of his business, and he's doing it perfectly legally. And he says, well, that's one of the reasons they're trying to clamp down on that sort of thing. They said yes, but we get them when he liquidates the company. When he sells the company, he said he won't sell it. He'll either liquidate it or give it to his children. He says you'll never get that tax. You'll never get it. He estimated some regions of £120 million being lost to people doing that to the island's exchequer.
Oh, there's so many ways to get around it. It's legally, and you can obviously he's due to pay at some point. But if you have it bought by a company in Guernsey or Jersey, and then liquidate the company there, then it disappears. But for every one you can think of, there's another way around it, and I think seriously they have to. If you want proper data, you have to publish the tax information.
Wouldn't it be possible though to get some sort of freedom of information on this? Say, for instance, all the people that earn 100 grand, say, on the island, 100 grand and above, and they're actually earning salaries, so it's not they've come here, to retire. And if you could find out how much tax they're actually paying, that would be supremely interesting.
Well, you can strip some of that out from the earnings survey, but that's not incomes. Because the earnings survey is based on employees, it's not directed.
But if there was some mechanism through the tax office that could be done.
One of the joys of the Freedom of Information Act, which is one of the reasons why civil services like Freedom of Information Act, is because Freedom of Information Acts determine how much information you can make available. It's not as if you have a right to everything and then people say
I know, but there isn't going to be anyone named, for that. But I think
there is a figure. There is a number of people that are in government are paid above 100,000. I think that's been bandied around a few times.
Oh, yes.
Right. I mean, the most embarrassing one, which I put on social media, is of course Will Greenhat, who earns £5 grand more a year than Theresa May.
Yes. Well, the whole structure, is rock star, level. But these are civil servants who be paying taxes as they earn. It's the ones, the lawyers and so forth, the accountants in Athol Street, who have got tremendous properties and they inject, bring a lot of money into the economy and what have you. But if they're paying like £1,000 a year or something, and the rest of us are paying, if you're on say 30 grand or something, you might be paying 3 or 4 grand or that sort of thing. That's the disparity. If we could uncover that.
But I mean, it's very tricky. Even getting information on work permits here, on jobs that have been applied for or not, it seems to be impossible. And that's something that legitimate process. This is also a legitimate process, but it seems to, I think you find it very difficult.
The other thing is the way. I've just been involved in a debate on Facebook about homelessness, and the amount of people that said, and sent me private messages saying we don't have homelessness on the Isle of Man. You don't walk down Strand Street and see people in doorways, and it's shocking that that's how people view homeless. It's they either, if they're not out on the street, they're not homeless.
Yeah, and we don't have a problem.
Because we do not have a homeless
Take a few up
act
head.
over here. We
Take
don't.
a head.
But
There is dozens.
with the narrative of, we have very small levels of unemployment.
Very small drugs problem.
Small drugs. Yes,
Very
yes.
small alcohol problem.
Yes, mainly because we don't measure it. So
Absolutely.
Therefore, we don't have a large one because we.
But my point was that the public think this way because the government.
But that's because that
They've been
narrative
fed
is
it.
pushed out time
Correct.
and time.
Which is why I think this, although we're just having a chit chat here and it's it's not going out, but I think something like this on a regular basis I think would help. It would help people that really want to know, because a lot of them did want to know, and they were asking me questions privately that, well, so the person that you knew sleeping in the van, they've got somewhere now. Yes, they've got somewhere now. So they're not homeless anymore. No, not now. But they were. But why were they homeless? Why did they get homeless in the first place? It must have been their own fault. And it's that mentality that kind of pisses me off, to put it
just
nicely.
to go on, I've got this is my opinion on just to go into something else if we were to go into something else. But I'd bring it in anyway. The MLC elections, I don't agree with how the people who are elected to become an MLC. I don't agree with that at all. However, I do think it's really good that there are so many people that put their names in the hat. And you go on Facebook and everyone's like, oh, they're all in it for trying to get easy money. It's what's easiest to open the world. Why wouldn't you put your name in? And that drives me mad.
Yeah.
Cause I just sort of thinking,
Absolutely.
oh, everyone keeps saying that there's not enough scrutiny, there's not enough people getting them. It's all the old boys club. As soon as you get people who then say, put the name down and say, yeah, I'll have a go at that, you get the whole negative again, and that's what it is about the Isle of Man.
It is.
And it's not, and
It's jealousy.
quite,
Well, it's
and quite
leadership
often
from the
it's a lot of people always say, oh, the Isle of Man, the government, you know, when you're saying before about, oh, everyone thinks it's all smiles and unicorns. Well, actually, some people are just stuck in this thinking. You know, there isn't a lot of people who are just stuck in the same thinking of negativity and this thing that goes around Facebook that just breeds this like negative all the time. Nobody ever seems to sort of say, yeah, actually that's a really good idea. I like that. I like how there's that amount of people who are going to put themselves forward. Because I don't think it's ever been this amount of people who put themselves forward for an election, and I think it's really good. I don't agree with how I don't agree with how the whole thing, how those people get elected. You know, I do think there's a different argument there. However, I do think it's a positive news story that there's so many people that have put their names in the hat.
Well, that is positive in one way, and of course there's been a greater diversity and greater number, but I don't think there's greater diversity of opinion.
I think
and that is one of the things that they are nominated, that they of course have to be nominated by an MHK and supported by MHKs. So they are going to roughly vote the line. You are not getting anyone of MLC going, I'm sorry, you know, we need to increase benefits, we need universal basic income, we need anything, anything radical. No. It's all pretty much politically uniform.
Oh, you can tell which ones are going to get in.
Well, when the election does happen, this time the voting is public, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we'll be able to see for who votes for who,
but then it has been semi-public anyway, because you had the number of supporters who then support the nomination. And if you see somebody like Tanya Humble, somebody who's got 9 already. Yeah. So she's a shoo-in, and I can see why she's a shoo-in as well, because she is something of an easily led bod. You're going to get Jane Poole Wilson back in because that will just be convention anyway. Also, it's helpful that actually she knows what she's doing. You have Christine Wheeler, who I think they want because of her contacts book, because she used to be HMRC before she was a big wheel corporate tax bod, and she has some very good contacts in UK government and in Europe, so they want her in. So 3 out of 5 already. Then probably for diversity's sake, they'll probably pop Andrea Chambers in because she's third sector. Looks good. And then maybe another woman. But sort of permanent.
It's quite good in the women's front then, isn't it?
Permanent. Oh yes, they'll go. Oh yes, isn't it marvellous? Because many of the male candidates are A, pale, B, male, and C, stale, and D also have some unfortunate connections. I mean, Ramsey, for example, I had to laugh seeing today. There's Ramsey going on about, oh yes, was it on Manx Radio? He's going on about the programme for government and trumpeting the success of the programme for government. Hang on a minute, didn't you used to write the press releases trumpeting the programme for government? Excuse me. Yeah, weren't you the guy who, wrote all the press releases for Bell and Tit? Yeah, come on. Oh yes, that's because Daffers wants her little chum in. No, sorry, can't have that. Then there are various sort of biz types who are sort of nebulous and Lord knows what lot they want to do. So it may be somebody like, is it Jockin? Is it Dawn Jockin? Is it illegally?
Well, the Hendy one.
Well, there's Hendy. Oh no, the planning officer. Oh no, don't want her.
But whether, I'm not saying it's whether she'll end up in. That's the.
She's
Yes.
a definite possibility.
There's a wonder whether she may get in, but also I think there's probably if you're talking about the scrutiny argument, then another legally, so Dawn Jockin might find a way in. But you're starting to see, you know, when you get to a point where you can tick off 3 of the 5 seats already.
Yeah, it's already.
You
Well,
know, it's pretty much a done deal.
Let's see,
Yeah.
but I think as a party it'd be useful to record who votes for who.
Yeah.
I think
Yes,
that'll be,
definitely. Yeah.
because there's a few things in my head, and like you mentioned there about the media and like this media family tree we've got on the island now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, it's so close, isn't it? What we've got, you know, the latest thing at Manx, you know, Manx Radio, what we've got in the newspapers, and then you know our only TV channel is
Yeah.
sponsored by Manx Telecom.
Yeah.
Well, taking us back to what Sarah said at the start about people being interested in, I think if anybody was to spend time reading the Manx political forums, you would think that the entire population of the island were against Legco, and they're not. I think that there are a lot of people who are very vociferously opposed to it, but I think by and large the majority of the population don't
They want
care.
to see
They don't care.
And
No,
a
they
lot of
just
people
don't
want
care.
to scrutinise it.
Well,
doesn't
I don't know.
affect them,
I
so
don't
they
think
don't
people
care.
actually care.
No, I don't.
And I think that's the problem. And I think
The
that's a
general
dreadful,
population.
dreadful thing.
It's getting them.
I don't
yeah.
understand.
There is a way. No, there's a way to get people engaged. If you want to do it properly, you go down the road of a citizens' chamber, which is where people are randomly drawn from the jurors list
Yeah.
to sit for 5 years or 4 years in that chamber, and it doesn't matter what your background is. Probably you haven't got a criminal record. It doesn't matter what your background is. If someone says they're too stupid to do this job, I don't care, because you explain this to them and you put it in language that they can understand,
Yeah.
and everybody gets a
else
chance to
can
do it.
understand it. Yeah.
And you have it's
That's
the
a
best
good
sort of
idea.
answer. It's not mine. It's the person who advocates it most strongly is a guy called Manuel Aliaga, who's a Portuguese political scientist and economist. Read, I think it is Rebooting Democracy. And if you do that, you'll just think, why aren't we doing this? Because it engages the public, and it's what they used for, as I said before, for the Irish abortion debate, where they had a referendum with citizens' panels, and it brings the debate out into the pub. Everybody's talking about it, and it switched the Irish gay marriage debate. Sorry, they're going to do the same for the abortion debate, but it switched the gay marriage debate from being 85% against to 65% for, and that's what it does when you bring politics into the pub.
Yeah.
There's-
For March 29th.
You know, and that's what we need to do.
March
Well,
29th
there's a degree
is
of
our politics in the pub event.
educating people, isn't it? Because I mean, I think you know you're really right. I think most people have absolutely no idea how it operates. What
No,
are the
they don't.
possibilities? They're just simply, you know, not interested. Haven't got the time.
It's not because
There's
it's not
not-
in schools, because it is in schools.
Yeah.
That always gets find about, oh, they need to go to school. It is in schools.
So does it get lost between the school bits and you getting older?
No, I think it's because you got, when people say we've got to get more young people involved, I think the young people are there, but it's their parents who are sort of who are not actually on board and who are into it, because then we've had people before that have come to meetings, and then I've spoken to them privately outside the meeting, and they've been told their mum said they can't come again. So no, that's not the students that are saying they're not wanting to come. It's their parents who have made this opinion because they're on Facebook all the time, or they're on here, there, and everywhere all the time, and it's just negative, and then it's all. It just becomes, it just gets lost.
Yeah.
It's just a way of venting, isn't it, for a lot of people? You know, it's simply just a sort of mad rant. And of course, nothing's achieved from it. It's a waste of everybody's time. And I don't know. I don't think they feel better from it when they actually sort of calm down. You know, it's gone absolutely nowhere. But you know, that requires this sort of thing. I think does require leadership from somebody. It requires people to come out and you know, these are issues they know they're happening. Or they, in which case, are a member of a lot of these groups, so they actually see it happening. Yet they just say nothing. You know, they're witnessing it. I mean, maybe not every one of them, but a good percentage are.
Well, they can't say anything now after Laurie got edged out, didn't he? For speaking his mind.
Yes, yeah.
And that is it. They'll all be sat there thinking, gosh, if I speak up now, I'm going to ruin my chances of a department, or I'm going to end up, sitting next to
But they heighten their chances of getting revoted
But that was
in.
the whole thing with Laurie. You only hear
Don't believe
hear one side of that. You don't hear everything else that's going on behind, do you?
Well, I mean, I
You
gather
hear
that
one
Facebook
side.
groups are closely monitored, and how it gets digested.
Yeah, and I brought myself.
Every day, and yes, he's obviously responded to a couple of things that I've pointed out to him.
Who?
Which
Laurie.
wasn't
Oh,
pointed out.
Howard.
But which still he's trying to big up. I mean, like the recent one about, oh yes, we've had lots of guarantees now from the, from the bollocks, absolute nonsense. All the,
Is this Brexit?
yes, all that has stated, and I've placed it on the forum, placed the image of the relevant clause, is that, it just restates the status quo.
Yeah.
Doesn't give any guarantees at all. And the reason that it's there, it's got nothing to do with the Isle of Man at all. It's because they have to deal with the much more vexed question as far as UK is concerned, of the sovereign base areas in Cyprus and Gibraltar. Those are, if you thought the Irish border question was bad, think about Gibraltar.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent Cyprus, because of course any Brexit agreement has to have unanimity in the EU, so all 27 have to agree, so one can veto. The Spanish are going to veto unless they get rights on Gibraltar. The Cypriots are going to veto unless they get rights on the sovereign base area. Those are two sticking points in themselves. Isle of Man, Jersey and Guernsey are only relevant as far as EU are concerned when it comes to tax, and tax avoidance.
Yeah.
That's all they care about. And indeed, if you look at the agreement, because I remember the first thing, and then Howard commented on Max Radio, because I put an email on it. And yes, besides, after all your visits on everything, there's no mention of the Isle of Man in the first draft at all.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, David. Long time no see. Happy New Year.
It's all greasy.